All right, I will say good morning, Baruch Hashem, a great zuchus to continuing the journey of Masechah Sanhedrin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning share, to thank all of our incredible Talmud Torah sponsor, our annual Talmud Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pei Hey, the Tilson family of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this year. Wishing a mazel tov to the entire Daf Yomi Chevra, the Daf Yomi family, for finishing Mesechas Basra, beginning Mesechas Sanhedrin, to take this journey with incredible dveikus, avo, zrizos, and Emeretz Hashem continue to expand our love for Torah and for the Ribono Shalom. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev, Josh and Becker Friedman, commission of the yard site of Josh's father, Yisrael Yehuda Ben Rav Chaim Rafal Zichron Devracha, Semia, and for the safe return of our hostages and the success of our precious soldiers, Semia and Malka Esterson, in memory of their parents, Yitzchok Leib Ben Aaron HaKohen, Sarah Rachel Bas Baruch Avram, Hinda Bas Henech Ephraim, and in memory of their dear friend, brave soldier, beloved husband and father, and skilled physiotherapist, Naftali Gordon, Naftali Yonah Shemi Kom Damo, Ben Beatrice Miriam, and Daniel Yigal. And our Daf Yomi sponsor for today, Robert Imas, for the yard site of Rus Bas Sarah, and in honor of the Daf Yomi Shir, Maishi Abramson and Saeed Haken and Jeremy Lassen. Beautiful. Okay, Shkoyach. And Adina Hirsch, dedicating the shir this morning in memory of her cousin Eliezer Botzer, who fell today. This is mamish like yesterday, while defending Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Yehi Zichro Baruch. He'll say, of course, and we always dedicate our learning in the schus of our precious hostages. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Emeretz Hashem, bring them home b'shalom and b'karov, and in the schus of our holy soldiers, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow them to be successful b'chol ma'aseh yadei. And I will say, I just want to also begin with a tremendous note of Hakar Satov. So I know that some of you probably received a collective 14 text messages from me and 25 WhatsApp messages, and I just want to thank everyone who participated so generously in this campaign. Baruch Hashem, an overwhelming Siyata D'Shmai from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you to all of our ambassadors. Thank you to all of our captains. We'll send out more detailed thank yous, but really just to thank you. We had a Daf Yomi page. A thank you to everyone who participated so generously on that, and everyone, all of our captains, all of our ambassadors, all the people who mamish worked so hard to bring this to fruition. The campaign is still open. We're in bonus round now. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep bonusing until the Chanukah Sabayis Emeretz Hashem on January 19th. So our new goal is $1.5 million, which I believe that we will Emeretz Hashem exceed as well. But just to thank you to everyone, a thank you to all of your generosity. Really, just we have something very special, something very beautiful, and that's all because of you and all because of our extended Kehila. Thank you all very much. And again, if I bombarded, and it wasn't me, it was actually Jeremy Lassen. But if we bombarded your inboxes with the messages and it got annoying at a certain point, I'm sorry, but Baruch Hashem, it worked. And just thank you very much. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should continue to Emeretz Hashem bless all of our efforts with incredible success. We should be Zoch Emeretz Hashem to move into our Mikdash Ma'at, our new Mikdash Ma'at, B'Sha'a Tova U'Mitzlachas, and continue to grow in our Be'adam L'Makom, our Be'adam L'Chavero, and Emeretz Hashem continue to swim through the Yam Shel Talmud together for many years to come. Well, so with that, let us begin. A lot to do today. Baruch Hashem, today's daf is daf Gimel. We are at 3. We are picking up Emeretz Hashem on daf Beis Amud Beis 2b Tana Mahin Dine Mamanis. So that is Ulamai, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 11 lines off from the bottom. So if you remember again, what we established in yesterday's daf was actually one core point, which is when the Mishnah said, Dine Mamanis B'Shlosha, what it meant was like this: monetary law is adjudicated by a court of 3. And what do we mean when we say monetary law? Gzelos v'chavalos. Cases of theft and cases of damages. What don't we mean? Loan disputes. Loan disputes are not included in this opening statement of the Mishnah. So as I say, obviously, now the Gemara says, okay, so when you say that loan disputes are, let's say, different than other dinei mamanis, how is it that loan disputes are different? So what's the pshat? Ulamai. What do you mean when you say loan disputes are different? See if you say that maybe when it comes to the adjudication of loan disputes, that you don't need a beis din of 3 So that can't be. So the Gemara says, "Lo ben nishlosha v'ha'am Rabbi Yavo shnayim shadanu dinei mamanis l'divra kol in dinei din." We're going to say that if two people adjudicate the case of monetary law, ultimately, again, their judgment is not a proper judgment. So you see from here that for monetary law, you do need a beis din of three. So I will say, so again, we're trying to, what we've established is that loan disputes are excluded from the first line of the Mishnah. That when we say dinei mamanis, right, monetary law, that does not include loan disputes. So now we're trying to figure out, so how is it that the adjudication of loan disputes is different than other forms of monetary law? So if you want to say that loan disputes don't require a beis din of three, that's clearly not correct. It's clearly not correct because the Gemara just says over here that if you adjudicate loan disputes with a beis din of two, then halacha l'maisa against such a din is not a proper din. Ella delo ba'inan mumchin. Interesting. So I'll say, so rather it must be that perhaps for loan disputes you don't require experts. Now what does that mean? So Rashi, most of Rashi is in the wide lines, 2, 4, 6, 8 lines in. Mumchin, smuchin, v'natlo rishus minasi ladun kidamin lakamam perkins. Most we're going to see this in Meretz Hashem actually on Sunday, the concept of smicha. The concept ultimately again of dayanim who have smicha, which means we'll call it ordination, but really it means permission. This is a certain level essentially of, what's the right word? We'll call it certification. A certain level of judicial certification. So maybe by regular dinei mamanis, you really need dayanim who are smuchin, who have smicha, and maybe by loan disputes you don't need smuchin. I both say now, or mumchin, I should say, experts. So you'll think to yourself, why would you ever not require certification or experts? Again, we're going to see all of this. So maybe that's what makes the adjudication of loan disputes different than all other forms of monetary law. Meaning, in all other forms of monetary law, if you want to adjudicate a case, you need mumchin, you need experts. But anyway, loan disputes, you don't need experts. The Gemara says, well, let's analyze this. My kasavar. What does this mean? I kasavar irav parshios kasav kan. So I'll say, so here's what's interesting. The concept of irav parshios, if you look at the Rashi says, Ika Savar Ira Parshas Kas Ksivkan, the Ikaman Araba Gozel Eitzim Shar Parshos Seksuva Spela Mishpatim Mi'urvavos Hein Shish Mikra Kasa Parshazu Shein Yachol Amod Ba Ela Mi Parsha Acheres. So we'll say this is fascinating. The concept of Ira Parshos says as follows: Parshas Mishpatim has a tremendous amount of law, right? A tremendous amount of halachos regarding dinei mamanis. Irav Parshios means that when we look at Parshas Mishpatim, different things are written in different places, but they can be learned out from each other. So in other words, you may have one pasuk written in one context that it really can only be understood from a pasuk written in a different context. And therefore that allows us to take all the Parshas Mishpatim and look at it as one cohesive unit of law, allowing us to learn out different things from different places. So my kasavar, ikasavar, Irav Parshios, kasav kan, libai nami mumchin. So we'll say, if you hold the Irav Parshios, then that should teach us that you do require mumchin even by the adjudication of loan disputes. Because then whatever applies by one type of dinei mamanis will also apply by a different type of dinei mamanis. The kasavra in Irav Parshas kasav kan, and I will say, if you don't hold the Irav Parshas, meaning that you can't halacha l'maisa go ahead and learn out different things from Parshas Mishpatim, then ultimately shlosha lamali, then why would I even need 3 judges? To which the Gemara says, the olam kasavra Irav Parshas kasav kan. In reality, we hold the Irav Parshos, which Rabbi means that we are able, and maybe even obligated, to learn out different concepts of monetary law from other buckets of monetary law. And if that's the case, the Gemara says, Ubedinhu dili bo'inayim mumchin. And really, even by the adjudication of loan disputes, you should still require experts. The Gemara says, "V'haydelo ba'ina mumchin." So why don't we require experts by the adjudication of loan disputes? Mishun Rabbi Chanina. So I'll say, because Rabbi Chanina. What does Rabbi Chanina say? So the Rabbi says, this is fascinating. Rabbi Chanina, Dvar Torah, Midorais, and Rabbi says, so again, just to hold our train of thought, right? It's actually a very simple progression. What's the progression? The Mishnah says, Dinei mamanis b'shlosha. Right? Monetary disputes are adjudicated with a beis din of 3. And now the way we understand 3, the Mishnah is, which types of monetary cases are adjudicated with a beis din of 3? Gazelos v'chavalos, damages. What is it coming to exclude? What is coming to exclude? Right? Loan disputes. The Gemara says, when you say exclude loan disputes from what? From what? To which the Gemara, bless you, to which the Gemara is essentially answering, exclude loan disputes from the obligation of expert judges. Meaning, in all other cases of monetary law, you not only need a Beis Din of 3, but you need a Beis Din of mumchin, of experts. When it comes to loan disputes, you just need 3, you don't need experts. That's the Gemara suggesting over here. So the Gemara says, now why is that? So why don't you need experts by the adjudication of loan disputes? Because Rabbi Chanina, what does Rabbi Chanina say? Rabbi Chanina, Devar Torah echad dine mamanes ve'echad dine nefashos b'jusha ve'chakira. So this is very interesting. Rabbi Chanina says like this: in reality, mid'araisa, both capital cases and monetary cases should require drusha ve'chakira. They will say, how would you translate drusha ve'chakira? I guess on a basic level, we would translate it as cross-examination. Right? So let's work backwards. Reuven and Shimon come into Beis Din, testifying that they saw Levi kill Yehuda. Okay. So we'll say, what happens when witnesses come in and they testify about the capital case? What's going to happen? They're going to be examined, cross-examined, right? And they're going to be asked a series of questions. So Rabbi Chanina says, in reality, that same level of cross-examination and that same level of fact-checking should apply by loan disputes as well. Top of Gimel, we'll say 3a. Shena Emar, Mishpat Echad Yihiyeh Lochem. Because the Torah says there should be one set of laws, right? One mishpat. So I'll say, if that's the case, why is it that in general monetary law doesn't have the same level of cross-examination? So I'll say, so just to appreciate what's happening over here is as follows. So for example, let's say when witnesses come in, right, Reuben and Shimon come in and they're testifying that Levi killed Yehuda. So Beis Din is going to ask them very specific types of questions. What time of the day did Levi kill Yehuda? We're going to see all of this in the Gemara. What was the position of the sun when Levi killed Yehuda? In other words, like a lot of really specific questions. So Rabbi Chanina says, in reality, we should ask that same level of specificity of witnesses who come from monetary matters, right? So Reuven and Shimon come in and they testify that Levi lent Yehuda $10,000. Because you ask him, witnesses, what time of the day was it when Levi lent the money? What was the position of the sun? Right? All these different questions. So Rabbi Chanina said, really, we should engage in that same level of what we'll call of specificity. So why don't we? So the Gemara says, so why is it that Chazal said that monetary law doesn't require this level of cross-examination? Why? In order not to close the door in front of lenders. What does this mean? So take a look at Rashi, third line down from in Rashi. People are going to stop to lend. Shema yichbar va'edim yitu velote edusa mechuvenes. Because they're going to say, what's going to happen? Imagine the following case, right? Levi lends Yehuda $10,000. So what's going to happen? Yehuda says, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? I don't even know who you are. You don't owe me any money. And what's going to happen? So they're going to bring it to Beis Din. If the witnesses are subject to significant cross-examination, let's say the witnesses don't know the answer. I don't know what time it was when I saw Reuven lend Shimon. I don't know. I know that it was the 19th of Kislev. That's what I know. That's what I know. I don't know anything more than that. So we'll say, what's the problem? The problem is then the case is going to get thrown out. Well, if the case gets thrown out, then Reuven's not going to want to lend money. Why not? Because we'll say again, remember, lending money from a halachic perspective is always, I want to say this the right way, but a little bit at a financial disadvantage. Meaning, in other words, you're not charging interest, right? You're not. So again, not a disadvantage because what Hakadosh Baruch Hu tells us to do. But already, again, it's not the same as regular lending. So now, if I know that by lending money, if my witnesses are cross-examined and they don't know every single specific detail of the transaction, my transaction gets thrown out of court, forget it. So the Rebbe says it's fascinating. So Rabbi Chanina sounds like this. Even though in reality, so financial transactions should be subject to the same level of cross-examination as capital crimes, but in order not to close the door in front of lenders, which means in order not to prevent people from lending money, Chazal relaxed the cross-examination requirements of witnesses to financial transactions. Isn't that incredible? So therefore, right, good. And by the way, so now taking this a step further, this is also why what? Don't require mumchin by financial transactions as well. This is why by financial transactions, what kind of judges can you use? What kind of judges? Regular guys. I don't need experts. Ella me'ata ta'u lo yishamu. But if that's the case, so now I understand why halacha l'maisa again. I don't need expert judges by loans, by loan disputes, and I also don't need cross-examination, right? In order not to close the door in front of potential lenders. If that's the case, well, if that's the case, that halacha l'maisa you don't need expert judges, then what? Then we'll say, as we're going to see in just a little bit, well, more than a little bit, a couple of weeks. So we're going to, take a look at Rashi. If that's the case, if the judge has made a mistake, what does it mean the judge has made a mistake? He says, Hediotos b'dinei mamonos lo yishamu dechevan de bershus rabbanon kanachsi havidu ki mumchin v'chol ha-mumchin lebezinim ta'a pater min l'shalem ki l'kavan. So we'll say, okay, there's a lot being thrown at us this morning. So we'll say, now listen to this. We're going to see a fascinating halacha, that when a judge is considered to be a mumcha, if he makes a mistake in his ruling, he is exempt from personal liability. You know, you see this concept, right? That when people are acting in their capacity, right? I think this works this way also. Like, in other words, if I go ahead and I see someone in a medical emergency, and I decide to go ahead and just perform a heart transplant on them, like I'm seeing, like, you know, I watched a lot of TV as a kid, so I know this kind of stuff, right? So l'maisa, again, I'm going to be liable for that. If a doctor does it, right, there may be some type. Acting in his proper role, there's a certain level of Good Samaritan, right? There's a proper level of coverage in that. So a dayan who is a mumcha, who makes a mistake, the halacha does not make him personally liable. A regular guy who decides to play a dayan, right? A regular guy who decides to play a dayan and then rules erroneously has personal liability. So now the Gemara says, 1 second. If you're telling me that you don't need experts by monetary law, so therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, if the dayan makes a mistake, he should be personally liable. To which the Gemara says, no. Kol shekein sha'atan. I'm sorry, he should not be personally liable. In other words, so if you don't need a mumcha by monetary law, so that means, again, the non-mumcha, we'll call him the hedyot, the regular guy, is acting with rabbinic permission. If he's acting with rabbinic permission, then he should not be personally liable. To which the Gemara says, no. Kol shekein atano adelas b'fnei lavin. No. All the more so, that is going to create a problem for lenders, because now, if a lender knows that even if the dayan rules erroneously, the dayan is not personally liable, so I'm not going to want to lend money. Why not? Because now I have no coverage in Beis Din either. Okay? Ihachi, tarti katani. So therefore, I will say, just want to point out what's happening over here. So where we're holding in the Gemara right now is that when the Gemara excludes loan disputes from monetary law, what that means over here is that loan disputes do not require 3 experts. They don't require mumchin. No mumchin, you just need 3 regular guys to sit on a Beis Din to adjudicate loan disputes, and you're good to go. If that's the case, says the Gemara, ihachi tarti katani. So the Mishnah is a little bit redundant. Why? Because what does the Mishnah say? Dinei mamanis b'shlosh hadyotos, gzelos v'chavalos b'shlosh mumchin. Right? What do we learn? So we'll say, so ultimately we learn that dinei mamanis is with 3 regular people, Shlosh Yotos, and Chazal and Gzelos v'Chavalos, and ultimately again damages is going to be with 3 experts. Va'od Shlosha Lamali. So you're going to say, so now I understand the only distinction over here is whether or not you need Mumchin or Hedyotos. But you're always going to need a Beis Din of 3. So if that's the case, why do you have to say 3 and 3? Just go ahead and say you need a Beis Din of 3. And here's the difference. The difference is that halacha l'maisa in general, right? Loan disputes only require hedyotos, and every other type of monetary dispute is going to require mumchin, el amarava, tarti katani, mishum Rabbi Chanina. Rather, I will say ultimately again, both are stated in order to satisfy the position of Rabbi Chanina. Take a look at Rashi right across tarti katani. Matzah the memar dinei mamanas tahinu ados valvalos b'shlosha koldu gzelos v'chavalos b'gimel mumchin u'mishum dechalukim b'dinein lo kalidhu b'chad klala. So I say, so ultimately again, because these halachos are separate and distinct, therefore they're broken out in 2 different statements. So once again, where we're holding right now in the Gemara is that halacha l'maisa Halacha l'maisa, everything is going to require three judges. The difference is that in loan disputes, you do not need mumchin. All you need are hedyotos. Incredible. Ravacha Brei Rav Ika Amar B'Da'araisa Chad Nami Kasher. Okay, so Rabbi say, get ready for this. Ravacha Brei Rav Ika says something dramatically amazing. He says that Mid'Araisa, even one judge is enough by halvas, by loan disputes. Shneimar B'Tzedek Tishbot Amitecha. Because the pasuk says, with righteousness shall you judge your fellow. It's singular. It's singular. So what do you see from us? Isn't that wild? So, right, so ultimately, again, really when it comes to loan disputes, even one judge is enough. Says the Gemara, El Mishum Yoshvei Kranos. What are we concerned about? It's incredible. What are we concerned about? Watch this. If you put this all together, right? If by loan disputes, number one, I don't need mumchin, I don't need experts. And now you're telling me I only need one. Rabbi, what's going to happen? Who are you going to find? Yoshvei Kranos. Yoshvei Kranos. Who are Yoshvei Kranos? So literally it means people who sit in the corners. What it means is Yoshvei Kranos are just people who just sit around. In other words, they're not doing anything productive with their time. So the assumption over here is that if you're not doing anything productive with your time, you are getting yourself into trouble. And we're concerned, if you look at Rashi says over here, Tagrin shein b'kiyim b'tiv dinan v'yiskes achayev v'chayev es hazakai. So Rashi says over here refers to merchants. Generally, Yoshvei Kronos refers to people who are just not productively occupied. So we're concerned over here that if you don't need mumchin and all you need is one person, what's going to end up happening? You're going to find someone who's just really inept, and he's going to end up adjudicating, and it's going to be a disaster. Atu betlasa milo havi Yoshvei Kronos. I don't understand. So just because you make a basin of three people, so lamaisa again, so you can't. Fine. So now you need a basin of three regular guys also. Why can't you be concerned that you're going to end up with a basin of three guys who are Yoshvei Kronos? Efshar delespu chad degamir. Supposed to say these are good numbers, right? So lamaisa, out of three Jews, one has to know what they're talking about. Okay, by the way, that's pretty solid, right? But so out of three regular people, at least one of those guys has to know what he's talking about. But if that's the case, also, so again, so what's fascinating over here is you see, I just want to show you what's happening. What you're like, thank you, because I don't know what's going on. Right? So I want to say, what is happening over here? What we're developing over here is a construct that loan disputes have a much lower legal threshold. What do I mean by that? You need three judges, but what kind of judges do you need? Let's go through this. What kind of judges do you need? Regular guys, hedyotos, which means that maybe even some of those judges may not be fully qualified. Why are we diminishing the judicial threshold, the legal threshold so much? We want to go ahead and make the adjudication of loans as easy as possible because we assume that will facilitate the loan market. People will feel more comfortable lending money if they feel they have easier legal recourse, right? That as a lender, I'll feel more comfortable if I have easier legal recourse. Elamiata, if that's the case, the Gemara says, Elamiata, tolo yishalmu. So if that's the case, maybe if the judges are acting with full rabbinic blessing, then if they make a mistake, they shouldn't have to pay back what they made a mistake with. No. If there's no personal liability, all the more so you're going to get the corner dwellers to sit on Beis Din. So what is there between Rava's statement and Ravacha Brei Ravika? Shmuel is a fundamental distinction. What does Shmuel say? Shmuel, Shnayim Shadanu Dine Dinehen. So listen to this. Shmuel holds the following. Although you need a Beis Din of three, if two people acted as a Beis Din and adjudicated a case, their ruling is upheld. So the Gemara says, Ella Shnikru Beis Din Chatzif. But rather they are called a chutzpahdik Beis Din. Right? What's the good word for chutzpah? Brazen. A brazen Beis Din. The Rava, less lahu de Shmuel, Ravach Brei Ravika, is lahu de Shmuel. Okay, so the machlokes over here is a statement to Shmuel. So Rava, ultimately again, Rava does not hold of Shmuel, and Ravacha Brei Ravika does hold of Shmuel. Good. So both sides. So this Mazel Tov, this officially closes out our first sugya of Maseches Sanhedrin, and it was great. We'll say, so again, what do we end up with? So again, let's go through our facts. Number one, Dinei Mamonis, right? So ultimately, again, monetary law is adjudicated with a Beis Din of 3. But the problem just is, then the Mishnah says, Gzelos v'chavalos, damages and theft is also adjudicated with a Beis Din of 3. That's redundant. It's not redundant. What is the Mishnah teaching me? General monetary law is adjudicated with a Beis Din of 3. What type of 3? What type of 3? Mumchin, experts. This comes to exclude loan disputes. What's the exclusion? Loan disputes, again, still require Beis Din of 3, don't require mumchin. But yet again, even though it doesn't require mumchin, those judges are still personally responsible for whatever it is that they adjudicate. Why diminish the judicial threshold by loan disputes? In order to facilitate the flow of loans, to make easy access to adjudication of loan disputes. This will allow lenders to lend with greater confidence. Beautiful. Weiter. Nezek v'chatzi nezek. So we'll say, then the Mishnah went on. Right? The Mishnah said nezek, which is damages. Chatzi nezek, which is half damages. You're going to remember again, when are you paying chatzi nezek? When are you paying chatzi nezek? Short time, excellent. So again, my ox gores someone, first time offender, half damages. So the Mishnah said, nezek, chatzi nezek, kefel, arba v'chamisha is all done with a Beis Din of 3. So it says the Gemara, nezek, hainu chavalos. I don't understand. But we'll say damages is the same thing as chavalos. In other words, both say, just the difference over here is nezek usually refers to damage done, my animal damages someone, versus chavalos, which often refers to one person damaging another person. But I understand, but it's redundant. Mishum de kabayla misnei chatzi nezek tani nami nezek shalim. You're right. We didn't really need to say nezek, but because we wanted to say chatzi nezek, so therefore again we said nezek as well. Says the Gemara. Chatzi nezek hainu chavalos. But again, even chatzi nezek, half damages should. In other words, we'll say the term chavalos just means damages. That should be an all-encompassing statement. Tana mamona v'katani knasa. Oh, Rabbi say, here we go. There's a big difference. We mentioned this in the Mishnah. Chavalos, damages, or nezek even damages, really is mamon, is monetary restitution. What's chatzi nezek? Rabbi say, what is chatzi nezek? Chatzi nezek is a knas. It's a penalty payment. So the Mishnah is talking about actual monetary payments and penalty payments. So the Gemara says, that's fine. Good. Hani chalamandamra palga niska knasa. So that makes sense according to the opinion that says that chatzi nezek is a knas. Ela lamandamra palga niska mamona ma'ikalamim. But according to the opinion that says chatzi nezek is not a knas, but rather again, what is chatzi nezek? Half damages is Mamon is money, what is there to say? Remember again, our Baba Kama days. These are Baba Kama days. Is half damages considered to be a penalty payment, or is it a monetary payment? Ella, idi dekabari lemisna tashlume kefel v'tashlume arba v'chamisha. Rabbi the Gemara says, you're right. Why do we need to write in chatzi nezek? Because since we're including, again, kefel, remember again, Rabbi say, what's kefel? Kefel is the double payment. If the stolen object is found with the thief, Arba v'chamisha, the 4 and 5 time payment is when I steal a sheep or an ox and I slaughter it and sell it. So we'll say these are payments. The mamon amud beis, the mamon she'eno mishtalim barosh. So we'll say this expression of mamon she'eno mishtalim barosh means a monetary payment that exceeds, or that is different than principal. So since these are monetary payments that are different than principal, tananami chatzi nezek, the mamon she'eno mishtalim barosh. Oh, ultimately, again, we also include chatzi nezek, because chatzi nezek is also a payment that differs from principal. Vaidi de kabayla misna chatzi nezek, tani nami nezek. And since we said chatzi nezek, ultimately, again, we said nezek as well. So then Rabbi say, it turns out that really what the Mishnah wanted to talk about was kefel and arba v'chamisha, which are monetary payments that are not the same as principal. Once we're including those need a Beis Din of 3, we're also including chatzi nezek. And once we're including chatzi nezek, everyone knows once you're saying chatzi nezek, you have to invite nezek to the party as well, right? So therefore, that's why we group everything together in the Mishnah. Beautiful. Rabbi say, give them base 3b, 4 lines down. Let's go. Shlosham. So we'll say, so now again we're into now the kishkas over here. How do I know that I need 3 dayanim? We'll say, so here it is. These These are very exciting Gemaras. Very exciting Gemaras. So again, because this gets to the kishkas of how we operate judicially. So now we've established in the Mishnah that at least for certain things you require a beis din of 3. How do I know? Because if you remember again, by the way, I just want to point out stylistically in the Mishnah, if you notice, the Mishnah went into the source of a beis din of 71, right? Machlok is 70, 71. And the Mishnah went into the mechanics of a beis din of 23. But if you notice what was not mentioned, a beis din of 3. In other words, the Mishnah mentioned the beis din of 3, but the Mishnah did not get into where I know that from. So let's go. Says the Mishnah. Says the Gemara. Shloshim minal. And both say 3b, 4 lines down. Shloshim minal. And how do I know that a beis din is comprised of 3 people? The Tan Rabbanon, because we learned V'nikrav balabayis ela Elokim. The pasuk says the balabayis will come in front of Elokim. Now in this context, Elohim, I should say, means the judge. So we'll say Harikan Echad. That's one judge. That's one judge, right? The pasuk says, right, the balabayis, the litigant, will come before the judge. 1. Ad ha-Elohim yavo dvar shnehem, right? Until the judge, right? Their joint adjudication, their joint issues will come. That's number 2. Harikan shnayim. Asher yarshiyun Elohim, that the judge will, what's the opposite of exonerate? Find guilty. Harikan shlosh Rabbi Yoshia. So Rabbi say beautiful. So essentially, Rabbi Yoshia says like this: 3 different psukim, all refer to the judge, Elohim, all refer to the judge. So ultimately, what do you see from here? That a basic beis din is 3 people. This word is Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonah son Amar, Rishon Tchila Ne'emar, Vein Darshan Tchilos. Rabbi Yonah says, no, you can't do that. So Rabbi say, there is this concept, fascinating, of Ein Darshan Tchilos. Now, what does Ein Darshan Tchilos means? Whenever the Torah says something for the first time, you can't use that first mention as part of a drasha. Why not? Because the first time that it's mentioned, that's where what? That's the source of where we're learning it out from. So because that's the source of where we're learning it out from, therefore it can't be used as drasha. So therefore, for example, the first time the Torah mentions Elohim, a judge, so we're being introduced to the concept of a judicial system. So therefore you can't utilize that as part of a more complex drasha. So Rabbi Yonasan says you don't darshan tchilos ella. So I'll say, so what do you do? So how does he find out 3 ella? Ada Elohim yavo dvar shnehem harikan echad. Rather, I will say the pasuk says Ada Elohim yavo dvar shnehem means one judge. Asher yarshin Elohim ze harikan shnayim. So I'll say, so according to Rabbi Yonasan, you have 2 mentions. So first time you mention judges, that's where it introduces the concept of a judicial system. So then you have 2 other mentions, which leaves you with what? 2 judges. So how do you know that you have a third on the beis din? Harikan shnayim vein beis din shakel. You can't have a beis din of 2. So therefore, what? Mosifin alein od echad harikan shlosha. So we'll say, so ultimately, again, you can't have a beis din of 2. Therefore, you have to add on a third. That's his source for a beis din of 3. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Neima. B'darshan tchilos kamiflagi. So maybe they're arguing on whether or not you could darshan the first time something is mentioned in the Torah. Demar savar darshan tchilos. One opinion says, Rabbi Yoshia would say that Allah Chalamaisi, you could darshan even the first time something is mentioned in Torah. Umar Savra ain darshan tchilos, and the other opinion says no, i.e. Rabbi Yonasan, you can't darshan the first time something appears in the Torah. To which the Gemara says no, the kuli ama ain darshan tchilos. Everyone agrees you don't darshan. I just have to tell you something amazing on that phrase. What's the machlokes? Darshan tchilos, ein darshan tchilos. What's the musrahas, right? Do we darshan the first time something's mentioned? I will say, what does that mean? I will say, it's interesting something to think about in life. If a person accomplishes something, does something great, but doesn't sustain it, right? I'm a one-time wonder, right? I go and I accomplish something one time, but then afterwards, I just don't keep it up. Is that one-time episodic accomplishment meaningful or not? Perhaps that's the machlokis over here. Darshan tchilos or ein darshan tchilos? Do we darshan the first time you accomplish something and maybe even you didn't perpetuate it afterwards or not? What is the meaning? What is the meaning and what is the impact of accomplishing something once and then lapsing back into old behaviors? So Rabbi say maybe this is the fundamental machlokis. Yesh darshan tchilos, I'm saying you accomplished something once, even if you did not keep it up, even if you did not sustain it, that's incredible. that one time is always something beautiful, something fantastic that you will have forever. The other opinion says, shkoyach. Anyone could accomplish something great once. That's not the metric of spiritual success. The metric of spiritual success is the ability to accomplish something once and then what? And then perpetuate it afterwards. That's our machlokes. Darshan tchilos or ein darshan tchilos. How do we paskin? Rabbi, get ready for it. Lo, the kuli alma ein darshan tchilos. Wow. So how do we paskin? The Gemara says, you're right. Now, halachically, you can't. The first time the Torah says something, you cannot go ahead and utilize that first statement as part of a drasha. And I will say, perhaps hashkafically as well, the true metric of our spiritual middle, of our spiritual success, is not in the ability to do something once, but rather, again, it's in our ability to do something once and then perpetuate it afterwards. It doesn't have to be forever, but anyone could muster up the courage and the ability to do something once. Right? That's darshan tchilos. The avoda of a yid is, yes, find the courage, find the spiritual courage to do something once, and then find the strength to perpetuate it to whatever degree possible. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yoshia, Imkain Neimakra V'nikra Balabayis Ala Shofet. So Rabbi Yoshia will say like this, but if that's the case, the pasuk could have said, the Balabayis should come to the Shofet. My Ela Elohim. Why does it go ahead and use lashon of Ela Elohim, which makes it symmetrical with the two psukim afterwards? Shmamina Leminyana. That comes to teach me ultimately again for number that a bezin requires 3. Incredible. Rabbi Yonasan will say Lishna da Alma Nakit. Rabbi Yonasan will say no, the Torah is just using regular verbiage. Pasuk just coming to say a person has a legal issue, bring it before a judge. Incredible. Rabbi Yoshia, Leslie based in nota. But here's the problem. Rabbi Yoshia, does Rabbi Yoshia not hold that you, by definition, need an uneven beis din, right? In other words, you can't have a beis din of 2. You have to have a beis din that has the ability to have a majority. Therefore, you need at least 3. So Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Eliezer says as follows: Ma tamad lomer lintos achari lahatos. What does it mean when the Torah says you have to be able? Lintos literally means to tilt. Thank you. To tilt, right? You have to go after the majority to tilt. In other words, you have to have a majority to tilt the din. HaTorah amra aseh lecha beis din nota. The Torah tells us you have to make a beis din that is tilt capable. What does it mean to have a beis din that's tilt capable? An odd number. Savla Rabbi Yehuda, he holds the Rabbi Yehuda Damar Shivim. I will say, he holds the Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. What does Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah say? Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah said that Sanhedrin Agadol was made up of how many people? 70 people. An even number. This nan Sanhedrin Gedola Haisa Shal Shivim Ve'echad. The Sanhedrin Agadol, the great court, was made up of 71 judges. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shivim. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it wasn't 71. Rather, what was it? It was 70. So the Gemara says so maybe Rabbi Yoshia holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yoshia also holds that you don't need a beis din that is tilt capable. Rather, even an even numbered beis din is fine. The Gemara says 1 second. Emer d'shamas Rabbi Yehuda b'Sanhedrin Gedola d'chsivi kroi. Remember from the Mishnah yesterday? What was Rabbi Yehuda's logic? Why did Rabbi Yehuda say that the Sanhedrin Agadol, the high court, has 70? Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda will say there's a pasuk. What's the pasuk? Asvali shivim ish. Gather from me 70 people. Rabbi Yehuda holds that's Chashbar Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu, gather from me 70 people, and in Rabbi Yehuda's model, Moshe wasn't included. Okay, so that's a pasuk. But in general, logic dictates that you need a tilt-capable beis din. To which the Gemara says, "Emer d'sham zeh Rabbi Yehuda b'Sanhedrin Gedola d'chsivi kroi b'shar beidina mishamislei." But Rabbi Yoshia hold that halacha l'maisa again with a regular beis din that you don't need it to be tilt capable. Of course, you need it to have a majority. Maybe not. Maybe Rabbi Yoshia holds that halacha l'maisa, essentially the Sanhedrin Agadol creates a model. Just like the Sanhedrin Agadol could be an even number beis din, so to any beis din could be an even number beis din. V'hatanaba we learned smichas zekenim va'arifas egla b'shlosha. David Rabbi Shimon. Yeah, I will say we learned that smichas zekenim. Remember we had this in the Mishnah. What was the Mishnah? Smichas zekenim means when the elders of the beis din place their hands on the par ha'elam davar shel tzibur. Right, when they issue an erroneous ruling, they offer a particular type of karban. So right, and arifas egla rufa, ultimately again is done with a beis din of 3. Dear Rabbi Shimon, these was Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Huda says bechamisha. Rabbi Huda says 5. Va'amina at my time with Rabbi Huda, and we said, what's the logic of Rabbi Huda that he requires 5 judges? The samchu shnayim, because the pasuk says, just actually in the pasuk samchu, they will place their hands. That's plural, right? The minimum plurality is 2. Ziknei, minimum plurality of ziknei is 2. So that's 2 and 2, that's 4. Vein beis din shakel. You can't have an even number beis din. So therefore, what? Mosifan alein od echad hare kan hey. We add on one more, that gives me a beis din of 5. So what do you see from here? What do you see from here? Even Rabbi Huda, who holds the Sanhedrin Agadol, is 70 people. That's only a din in Sanhedrin Agadol because there's a pasuk. But by regular beis din, what is he going to require? An odd-numbered beis din. Rabbi Yoshia adifim Rabbi Huda. Suppose it must be Rabbi Yoshia holds something different than Rabbi Huda. What does he hold? Rabbi Huda b'Sanhedrin Agadol Huda leslei ha b'shar beidina islei. Rabbi Huda ultimately holds that what? He holds that the Sanhedrin Agadol is an even-numbered beis din, but by other batei din you need an odd number. Because by Sanhedrin Agadol, that's a pasuk. But by other batei din, you're going to require an odd number. Rabbi Yoshia b'shar beidina nami leslei. Rabbi Yoshia holds even by other batei din, you could have an even number beis din. Incredible. Ela v'hai lintos. My avele. So what does Rabbi Yoshia do with the pasuk that says lintos? That the beis din has to tilt. Mokim la bedine nefashas. That refers to capital cases. Capital cases require an odd-numbered beis din. Aval bedine mamanis lo, but dine mamanis ultimately again does not require an odd-numbered beis din. Ela hadisna, but that which we learned. Shnaim omrim zakai ve'echad omer chayiv zakai. But we learned about say that if 2 people say that the litigant is guilty, one says chayiv, he's guilty. I'm sorry. 2 said he's innocent. 1 said he's guilty, so he's innocent. Shnaim omrim chayiv ve'echad omer zakai chayiv. 2 say he's guilty, 1 say he's innocent. Chayiv. Name Rabbi Yoshia. That must not be like Rabbi Yoshia. Ultimately, again, it was even Rabbi Yoshia, because Rabbi Yoshia learns from capital cases. If you're going to have to follow majority, ultimately, again, by Dine Nefashas, which I will say ultimately again is much more chamer, then Allah says certainly you're going to have to follow a majority by Dinei Mamanis as well. So we'll say what comes out of here is as follows. What comes out halacha l'maisa is the following: that everyone is going to agree that you require an odd-numbered beis din by Dinei Mamanis. The machlokes is exactly where you're learning it out from. Machlokes Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonasan. The only time we have the possibility of an even-numbered beis din is where? By the Sanhedrin. Right? That Rabbi Huda says is 70 and not 71. And even there, why does Rabbi Huda hold that way? Why does he hold that way? Because I have a pasuk that says Asfali Shivim Ish, Shivim Zikin, right? I have a pasuk that says gather from me 70 people, and the machlokes is Moshe Rabbeinu included or not? But Allah Lamaisa, again, you're going to require an odd numbered base. Right? We'll stop over today. Also, just a special mazel to our chaver, Ari Lerner, on the engagement of his son Yeshaya. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Should be Zochar Meshem to walk the Chassan and Kala down to the Chubbah B'Shah Tov Mitzlachas. See them build the binyan Adeyad. Mazel Rabosai, such a schos. What a week. Finishing Ba Basra, beginning Sanhedrin. Shkayach, everyone. All right, Chaver on Zoom. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos, everyone. Shkayach.